Morara Omoke, an advocate of the High Court, even as we focus on the ouster of the second deputy president and under the 2010 constitution. That is Rigathi Gachagua, who is still recuperating at the hospital. That is the current hospital after actually getting unwell during the process of the removal from office that was before the Senate on the second day, and so he did not give his defense. Keep the conversation going via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Church, as well on SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. I'll be glad to sample them before wrapping up this special focus on Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment. And the National Assembly will also today be having its special sittings. It's a matter of wait and see who President William Ruto will unveil to replace Rigathi Gachagua. That will also form a better part of our conversation this morning. Now, with the Deputy President or Rigathi Gachagua having been impeached as the Deputy President while still, in hospital, these are just some of the reactions from his allies. We begin with Gathoni Mushomba, the Githunguri Member of Parliament.
It's very unfortunate that the Deputy President is overwhelmed, and I guess that's why he's here, because he's completely crushed. We've not been able to have any conversation with him or even to see him properly, because we came in when the doctors were at it, and therefore we may not be able to talk about his medical status right now. But I'm sure you have heard from even the people who saw him come in. Things were a little bit heavy on him. Yeah, so we just came here to just support the family and support his workers, his support staff. They are really crushed, and we are hoping and praying that he's going to come out of it.
You don't sit in the Senate, but you've just seen what has happened in the Senate. Maybe a sentiment on this as the Deputy President is still in this facility.
It's quite unfortunate that politics has pushed us to the extent that we no longer respect life or dignify life. Because I thought the honorable thing that Senate should have done is to allow the Deputy President to get himself up and continue with the process. But if the Senate has decided that they really do not give weight to the human defeat of the process, then I think we have a lot to rectify in this country. It's very unfortunate that political processes can overrun even the human life and human dignity. But we are happy because God has saved the life of the Deputy President. We are happy that he's alive, and the rest we leave it to God. Yeah.
So now that you said you can't speak about his health, you are disappointed with whatever is happening in the Senate. What options are you guys looking at?
We have no options other than just wait unto God. It is only God who gives good health. It's only God who gives life.
I'm saying in terms of the case.
God to give him good health, and then we consider our options.
Remember, we are getting as many voices on this conversation as possible. Jackson Ngoima, you are a political analyst. With what Gathoni Mushomba has actually talked about, and it played out at the Senate, where the motion or the removal actually of Deputy President took place while he was in hospital. He did not even put, his defense before the House. How do you react to this?
Thank you very much, Chacha. It is quite unfortunate that we got to where we got. In literature, we say what befell Gachagua is a literal execution of a character who has served his purpose. To the political world, Mr. Gachagua is a character who had served his purpose in the UDA party. But what do I say about this?
So he was used?
He was certainly used. And what do I say about this action of the Senate to go ahead and proceed with its proceedings while we had Gachagua still in hospital? It is unfortunate. It is lack of sympathy, it's lack of empathy. And I believe it is a crucifixion of every good virtue that a human being should have. It is unfortunate that the Senate stooped that low. But
they were time-bound. That's the argument.
The time-bounding of the Senate is very clear. They had 2 additional days. So there is something they would have done. There's a ruling they would have done. They should have waited at least for those 2 days. This urgency, and I remember one of their lawyers, one of the Gachagua lawyers described the behavior of the Senate as a microwaving situation. So it's like they want to serve the nation on a microwaved case.
Also, Kimani Ngunjiri, who is the former Bahati member of parliament, at some point, by the way, he wailed, you know, at the current hospital. There was a video of him, you know, that was circulating. My director, Dan, let's have Kimani Ngunjiri's bite.
It's unfortunate. It's so bad that the politics can make somebody to reach where we have reached. For somebody who helped this government to reach where we are, to push him until he can die just because of politics. We have not seen him. We have not been allowed because the doctor have said he must finish what he's doing with him, but we leave it to God. We know there are people, powers, but there's God is power. We also know that. We ask God to save his life. Only that. Let everything go, but save the life of the Deputy President. It's a big experience, but we are happy for Kenyans. They have seen the proceeding. That is the something which is very good for Kenyans. The proceeding of the Senate, people have seen it. The common Mwananchi cannot be told anything now. He has been there, he has seen it, he has seen the proceeding, and the power lies to the common Mwananchi. So we have nothing we can say. Maybe wait for tomorrow, if we are going to be allowed by the doctor, maybe we can also see him, but we are going to pray for him and pray for the doctor to help him. But I'm in 35 years in politics. I have never seen what I've seen for this time. I've never seen. And God bless our deputy, and Kenyans continue praying, because the prayer is the strongest whip which people can be able to do. But for now, let's leave him in the hands of the doctor and the hands of God. That's what I can say.
An emotional moment there for the former Bahati Member of Parliament, Kimani Ngunjiri. Odhiambo Otieno,
yes.
Also you are a political analyst. How do you see this?
Well, first of all, let me say this, that when you see a self-made man, you must know that you are staring into the horrors of unskilled labor. And I say this because the deputy president, or the former deputy president, as now is one who has fashioned himself as a self-made man. Leadership is about service. And leaders are made. And for you to be made, you're mentored. The biggest crime that the former deputy president has been impeached for is not really what was before the Senate. That is the truth. It's that when you're going for Rurashio, there are men or boys that you pick to take you towards the ratio to pick the lady. Once you pick the lady, whatever you do with her is different, and then you don't need those who took you to that journey. The person that you go to when there is an offense at that moment, majorly is not always the people who took to the ratio. It is now the elder people or the older people in the community. So yes, the former deputy president committed a crime in communication. And it was nothing about what was before the parliament or Senate, in my view, because he didn't guard his tongue. The biggest crime he committed is that. He didn't guard his tongue, and for that, he had to fall. And as I sympathize with Mount Kenya, I will also want to state this clearly, that leadership is something that is so solemn, is about service. And the former deputy president did not, in any way, in my view, observe what leadership meant. Because service is about influence, direction, and inspiration. There is a moment for honeymoon which is agreeable, which is allowable before or during any celebration. When they won the elections, there is up to a moment when you're allowed to celebrate, but don't rub it too much in people's faces, because now you are a deputy president, you ought to unite the whole nation, which he fundamentally failed in. Number two, in that very line, as he was going about his business, he made another fundamental mistake, and that is bad table manners or poor eating habits. It is said when you're eating, and as a communicator who is well trained in public relations, I know that when you start eating, you must keep your mouth shut. And that is why when they're sworn in, you're given an oath of secrecy, that there are things that will come to your knowledge and you must keep silent. Not even your wife should know such things, because they go into the statehood and
man.
Not nationhood.
So that truthfulness is what is not needed.
And that's what we say, that truthfulness without kindness is hostility. There are some things that you don't say. Like, for example, we know, it's a fact, that in any political situation, there are people who eat first and the others remain. But don't go about saying it, number one. Number two, the National Security Council or committee is where opinions will always clash. And when something comes to your knowledge, you don't go out and shout. So I'll say this in closing, that the former deputy president did not or was not properly trained in protocol, was not properly trained in how to carry himself around power. I say this as somebody who has worked around power for over 10 years.
It could be he was trained, maybe he did not.
He did not
allow
accept
himself to adjust.
Yes.
Now, also Kate Warogoro and Ngongoyo reacted to the whole issue, and by the way, they were speaking at the current hospital, where Gachagua is still hospital, according to his doctor, and that is Dr. Gikonyo. 72 hours is at least, enough time for them to monitor Rigathi Gachagua, who has immense chest pains.
It's unfortunate that the senators have decided to proceed while knowing that the natural has happened to the deputy president. And I think what matters to us at this point is the health and the life of the deputy president. The impeachment is not important anymore. It is sad that they have decided they will do what they need to do, which we will know what they have done. But from where I sit, I would have preferred to know what becomes of the deputy president, because his health is at stake. As we talk now, we have not seen him. The doctors have not allowed us. It is very worrying. It is sad. No one would wish that it would have reached to the health of the deputy president. I still plead with the senators. It will be wrong to make any decision on somebody who does not know where he is and his life is at stake. It will be sad.
As an active citizen and a friend of the Gachaguas and also Kenyan, I take this opportunity to wish His Excellency the Deputy President a quick recovery, pole to his spouse and his children, and pole to his family and Kenyans of goodwill, and also to respond to the uncertainty, particularly from our region and our friends who've been asking whether it's true that His Excellency was taken ill this afternoon. As you see, we are at the current hospital. We are devastated, but we have not given up that the Deputy President was taken ill today. And therefore, we continue asking Kenyans of goodwill across all divide to pray for him, and also to ask that we give the family the much-needed space and privacy during this time so that His Excellency gets time to recover. However, great things and unprecedented things or actions are happening in the Kenyan Senate today. I never thought or imagined at any given time we would reach where we are today. But all in all, we continue thanking God for everything, and we pray because Kenyans, we are very active and thorough as far as political moments unfold, we are able to see, scan, and be able to draw lessons and conclusions very fast. I pray that you not give up or relent. The spirit of our fathers, the spirit of our forefathers, the drafters of the Constitution, the blood that was shed, and the many souls that are still waiting and crying for justice, that the justice to this impeachment process, to one Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, shall be served. The Senate have done their best, but we know political processes sometimes are like fixed matches where they cannot actually be able to forecast or tell the predetermined results. And therefore, I call upon the judiciary and patriots, as we look upon the judiciary, to bail out this country. If this goes unchecked, it will lead this country to those dark days. I rest my case.
Jackson, you know, it was perhaps striking of a balance of humanity on this other side and the timelines. Understanding that the National Assembly has convened its special sittings today, could it also have been a plot by Gachagua's team to disrupt whatever had been planned in an event where by today, if the special sittings actually were pushed maybe to next week, then the Mashujaa Day celebrations will have forced Gachagua and President William Ruto to see eye to eye, to share the same podium. Maybe is that what was being avoided?
His Excellency, the Deputy President, and I may call him former Deputy President, described these proceedings as a theater of the absurd. And that did not sit very well with Parliament or the National Assembly when going through his motion. His lawyer, Elisha Ongoya, said that these charges are oscillating between falsehood, the ridiculous, and the embarrassing. Even assuming, for example, and I'm saying assuming with tremendous respect to the Deputy President, because I certainly believe that if these members of Parliament went to hospital and actually told us that he's unwell, that they were not even actually allowed to see him, this could then not have been a ploy. But even if it was a ploy, it must have been a good strategy by his legal team, because this Senate was fixed, Parliament was fixed, the desired outcome was already decided, and what they were going through was a sham trial. And I call it a sham trial because any Kenyan watching the entire proceeding would have seen a hidden hand or a hand that was not exposed at any stage of the entire proceeding.
So you're saying Mwengi Mutuse could have been a proxy mover of the motion?
Mwengi Mutuse was with tremendous respect to his constituents. At least I happen to have been one of those Kenyans who followed the proceedings. And I can tell you, he came out so pathetically during the cross-examination by the defense team. And actually, he lowered his own standard of proof. The entire Senate in itself called this an inquisitive process.
He's an advocate, by the way.
Yes, he's an advocate, but he was challenged by fellow advocates and asked when he actually practiced law. And he was unable to even cite a single case of conveyancing, which he did. And I believe conveyancing would be the most obvious, even for a first year, I mean, a person practicing in his first year. They lowered the threshold into just a mere inquiry, while the actual threshold in an impeachment proceeding should be above the balance of probability, but of course below the reasonable doubt. At least they were not even able to go in between. They just left it at mere inquiry. They left it actually even below the balance of probability. Now, the Deputy President's health cannot be discussed by us seated in this studio. And neither could Senate do the same. But I also believe that the Speaker of the National Assembly, no, so not the National Assembly, sorry, the Speaker of the Senate could direct an order that a medical report be placed before him this morning or even on Saturday morning. Because, and I'm saying that the urgency with which the Senate was moving was a very clear indication of a fixed match. If you read, and I'm not a lawyer, but Article 149 of the Constitution says, from the time the seat falls vacant again, Article 149 provides that we have 14 days within which the president should forward a name to the National Assembly. Now telling me that the Gazette notice was done maybe at midnight and a name to be forwarded in a special sitting seated again today is further reinforcement that this agency has been designed elsewhere. Again, even after the National Assembly has been given that name, the law also provides that they still have 60 days within which to consider what has been presented before them. Now, what is this agency? What is this microwaving? What is this slam dunk thing that we are seeing with the both institutions of parliament, both houses of parliament? I do not want to really interrogate so much about what Gachagua is, what, like my colleague here said. It is true, and I said, and I used the word has been used. And I would say that clearly in terms of leadership, he may have failed in one way or the other. He allowed himself to be used. Perhaps in his various statements, he didn't exercise so much of caution. But there's something that I must point out. If any organ of government, be it cabinet or national security intelligence, sat down and discussed anything illegal, all by any standard committed a crime, all violated the Constitution, no one is under any obligation to maintain that kind of secrecy. No one, no one. And therefore, again, when the Deputy President talked about the National Security Intelligence, he said he has been informed. He didn't say it was discussed in the National Intelligence meeting. He said he has been reliably informed by those people who used to be there. And therefore, I think the Senate failed in its secular obligation of inquiring into what the Honorable Mutuse had presented. And apparently, Honorable Mutuse looked unserious, even on appearing before the Senate. And we always say in an impeachment proceeding, the Senate must be unawed. They should not feel like there is a wow moment. They should be unawed by what is presented before them. They should be uninfluenced in any way, and they must be impartial. Sadly, looking at it from my own perspective and from a person who is not in UDA, first I would describe this impeachment motion against Gachagua as self-cannibalizing by a government. They are cannibalizing themselves. And number two, I would look at it as something that had already been decided way before it was tabled. The person moving the motion could not even tell the source of his documents. So clearly these documents, again, were prepared elsewhere. So there was so much that the Senate failed to do. But again, we are here, and UDA will continue in self-cannibalizing. Remember, you cannot again look at this impeachment of Gachagua, his sicknesses in isolation. Remember, this is a government that dissolved in its entire cabinet because Parliament had been impeached by people under Article 1. Gen Z movement, they had impeached Parliament. So an impeached Parliament has just impeached the Deputy President.
Even as we are about to take a short commercial break, I'll still be getting back with you on the Senate being a quasi-judicial and an argument legally being brought that allow us more time until on Tuesday so that we will bring Rigathi Gachagua on board, because it was a matter of whether the doctors should attend to Gachagua or they should be writing a note to the Senate. Do you feel Amason Kingi, despite of course leaving it to the members to decide whether the motion should proceed or not, still failed in terms of allowing the legal team to really get to the bottom of it? In fact, by even allowing Dr. Gikonyo, he spoke to the media to speak first before them concluding that, Gachagua was just here a few minutes ago. He seemed okay, judging by the looks, and it's a medical issue that he did not go to the hospital with an ambulance. He has a chest care, maybe just in his vehicle. He'll still be able to access the hospital without much traffic.
Yeah. Look, let me tell you this. All of us were watching when the former deputy president was present during the trial, you could see from the body language. And on this specific section, let me focus on the unspoken, because the unspoken is what many people don't want to listen to. And that's what I'm keen to bring to the attention of our viewers. That when he was seated, obviously he looked well. He looked very okay. There was no problem. He left for lunch. Then he didn't show up back at work or at Parliament. We all know the ploy. You were once a student in school, even him. and you know why you're laughing? Because there are those off days we used to take by just calling in sick, and you know you're not really sick, yeah? And I say that with a lot of caution.
So a 59-year-old could still play the tactics of a 10-year-old boy.
Of course. If a 2-year-old child can manipulate you by throwing themselves back, knowing very well you will hold them. Yeah, that's number two. Speaker Amason Kingi. I think, apart from Kenneth Marende, this is the only other speaker after Kenneth Marende who has displayed Solomonic wisdom. In my view, if you look at how he dispensed with the issue of waiting for Tuesday, which of course was practically impossible, he gave it back to the people.
So he saw that making a decision as the speaker would have thrown him under the bus.
Of course. Henry Gibson, in the book An Enemy of the People, clearly, I think it was translated by one of the local literature giants in Kenya. In one of the statements, or consistently throughout the book An Enemy of the People, says that the majority are often very wrong. The majority are often very wrong. And when Speaker Amason Kingi threw it back to what I call the hyenas, your guess as good as mine, they did it justice.
Well, allow me at this point to take a short commercial break. When we come back, I'll also be engaging Morora Moki, an advocate of the High Court, on the legal redresses that Gachagua could still opt for. But you also invited this conversation over social media platforms at K24 TV. To join Chacha as well on SMS and WhatsApp numbers at the bottom of your screens. We'll be right back with this conversation.